All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
And welcome to another episode of with Chicago Junction. The radio program is all about the amazing world of railroading, both the many facets of the industry and model railroading also. I am your announcer, Brian Valou, and here is our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Chief Electrical Engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, July the 10th, the year 2019. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
Well, thank you, John. And as he said, my name is Brian Valou, and I'm also playing host tonight. I retired Navy and worked for the railroad for 15 years as engineer conductor. I do Operation Lifesaver, and I am a lifelong model railroader. Play mostly with tin plate trains, garden railroading, and all that other neat stuff. And on my left, we have Mr. Dave DeRuska.
Yeah? Hi, Dave DeRuska. I am a retired locomotive engineer. Last place I worked was Metra. And I'm also the vice president and program chair of the Blackhawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society and the chief mucky muck for Chicago Railroad History Month. I also do our Facebook page, Chicago Junction, as well as another Facebook page called Chicago Area Railroad Historians.
I'm Ron Stock, retired library director from Eisenhower Library, serving Norwich Harwood Heights. Love trains. Whenever I travel, I only go by train. And HO modeler. And just overall enthusiast.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Berry. I'm a retired Chicago police sergeant, lifelong Lionel collector and operator, and a director with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club in New Lenox.
Hi, it's Doug Kenyuk. I'm an officer with the Railroad and Short Lines Club of Chicago, longtime rail fan, and an N-scaler.
And we do have a visitor with us. Sir, would you like to identify yourself?
My name is Ron Messner, and I'm a garden railroad. Amateur, and I love trains. What else do you want to know?
We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
I know you too well.
There will be a test of love later on.
Oh, wow.
We never know who is going to show up tonight.
Hey, yeah, we should have brought those cards that you had. Quiz cards. That'll prove your love of railroading.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. We haven't done that in a while.
No. Yeah, we got to bring those back.
Yes.
And we don't have the clip with Mel Brooks doing the train announcement for Anaheim, Azusa, and Rancho Cucamonga.
No, that was Mel Blanc.
Mel Blanc. I'm sorry. I got
the man of 1,000 voices.
Yeah.
You know, if you listen to enough Jack Benny, you knew Mel Blanc.
Yeah. It would have been interesting if he had done it as Elmer Fudd.
Yeah, because what was the first sound that he did? What was he originally on the Jack Benny show? That's a question.
Isn't that the Spanish guy, the Mexican guy, I mean?
Nope. That was one of the funniest routines.
See? Sigh.
He was the Maxwell. Jack Benny's car. He provided all the sounds. Anyway, I know you people are real interested in that. Stuff that we pull out of our
Collective hats.
collective
our
minds.
our digressions.
Yes. We can't add up. That was put us with our original friend, Jack. Big Red. And I know he's out there. And hope, we'll do a happy rails to him.
He keeps threatening to make an in-studio appearance.
Yeah. But, geez, we got a lot of excitement going on this month.
Just a little.
We do have, of course, we will talk more about this later, but the world's largest steam locomotive will be coming and make an appearance in the Chicago area. She'll be arriving on the 26th. Spend 3 days on display in West Chicago at the old training facility, which will give her address and everything. And then she'll leave town for Clinton on Tuesday, the 28th.
I've been to Clinton.
Actually, I have too on a UP excursion
Yeah.
when they brought the E8s in.
Excuse me, the 30th, I mean.
Could you read your notes a little better?
We got to find somebody.
Thank God we have an in-house critic now.
We need to find somebody to flash the message in semaphore.
Inflation at summer 5.
Army.
Navy.
Air Force.
You're outnumbered, Chief. Try to act in a civil manner.
Must be
What was that you had, sir? All right. But let's go on to other news. Want to give us a start, Doug?
Yeah, I got some local news. It seems that Iowa Pacific, Chicago Terminal will be no more by the end of the month. Progressive Rail's taken over their final operation, which is the Bensonville Industrial Lead. They haven't officially filed the papers yet with the Surface Transportation Board, but they put out that certificate of compliance that said they are going to be taking over the service sometime after July 27th. So don't know what name they're going to use, though. They don't know. In the papers, they indicated that temporarily they're going to use the Chicago Terminal name, but in reality, don't know what name they're going to assign to it. Hey, guess what? Steel ties offer cost efficiencies. Did you know that?
My, how does that happen?
Apparently, the steel industry has found a new customer. They're going to let the railroads put in steel ties. Big story about it.
Who, what, where, and how?
Didn't say in the article who's putting it in, but apparently it's being tested all over the place. Denver, the transit bus agency discovered, the RTD, that hooking up with Uber increased the number of commuters. Because Uber brings them to the stations and then they go on from there. A little bit of interest.
Yeah.
Alaska Railroad signed a pact. They're going to make a connection between the Alaska Railroad and the Canadian, get the right one here, Canadian National. They're going to build 1,400 miles of railroad to connect the Alaska Railroad with the lower 48. Didn't say when they're going to start. They're still working through the regulatory permissions.
When does Amtrak service begin?
Is that Prince George? Where they're going to come in?
I don't have that there, but apparently the Alaska Railroad's going to have to build some lines because I think they're getting tired of getting everything by barge. Hey, guess what? Commuter Rail Coalition. A group formed to push for commuter railroads. Got the websites. Interesting enough, it's called commuterrailcoalition.org. And finally, good old France has tested a drone train. The train is run by a camera in the locomotive from a central location. They've been testing it now for about a year.
Well, you knew they're going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, autonomous trains really aren't new because we have actually run them in this country.
Black Lake and Mesa.
Black Mesa and Lake Powell.
The Linden line in New Jersey.
Muskegum.
Yep.
They were all...
but they were mostly remote point-to-point or grade separated.
Right.
The problem in the other countries, most of the rail lines are grade separated. Here, they're not. And two, we don't have a lot of bypasses in place.
Yeah, well, because every time they tried to build an elevated line, they were taking to court for environmental stuff that really made no sense because they were fighting every time. They keep going back to the same office going, no, the paperwork's been done.
That was the point behind CN buying the J was to get a bypass around Chicago. Now they're being fought over because they won't let them extend any of the sidings.
Well, CP's got that problem too.
Yep, up in Glenview. So that's the little bit of news I have.
Well, on that topic here, no North Shore holding tracks in Amtrak Hiawatha expansion, and that's from the Illinois Department of Transportation. They have decided to drop a proposal to build 5 miles of holding tracks alongside railroads in a pair of affluent, or is it effluent, North Shore communities. The expansion is part of a roughly $200 million project to increase service on the Amtrak Hiawatha line between Chicago and Milwaukee. Well, at least they got the suburbs to spend a little bit of money to stop it. And then now Wisconsin and Illinois are working on alternatives for expansion of Amtrak's Hiawatha service. Let's see. It didn't really say what they're going to do, except probably talk. And I will yield the floor.
I have some articles or some online things to do during the summer, and it'd be a fun thing to take children to. They're always interested in model railroad clubs. So the first one that I have is the Garfield Clarendon Model Railroad Club, and they have every Friday they have, or the first Friday of the month, they have a open house, and it's from 7 to 9 o'clock. And their website is www.garfieldcentral, all one word, .org/visit. And they're located at 4501 North Clarendon Avenue, Chicago, and they're accessed also by CTA. Another railroad club, which we had a guest last week talked about their 50th anniversary, is the Elmhurst Model Railroad Club. They're open Friday from 7 to 10 and Sundays 1 to 4 every week. They're located at 111 East 1st Street, Elmhurst, Illinois. And they actually have 3 different layouts. They have an HO layout, an N-scale layout, plus a HO3 narrow gauge rail. And their website is www.emrrc.net. One which Brian is very much aware of is the Chicago Botanic Garden. They have a real nice, they're open every day of the week. From May 11th to the 13th, they are from 10 to 5, weather permitting, and then Wednesday until 8 o'clock. And that's the Wednesday until 8 o'clock starts June 5th and goes through August 28th. And they're a G-scale model railroad, so that's another gauge, a different gauge. I'm just curious, Brian, how was this year with all the rain? Did that cause you guys problems?
Well, it cut down on the number of people. With us, it's, We wait till the rain's finished, let it drain off a little bit, and then we'll put the trains back on the track after we wipe them down and start running again.
No washouts, eh?
No, they've elevated some of the tracks, so it took care of that. But yes, we have one that we do keep an eye on, even with the 4-inch raise, where our crossing is, and a lot of it will floodle down, and a lot of leaves and stuff actually catch there. And then we have to drain the Hudson Bay in Lake Michigan because they're too high.
And just to cover another gauge, the Lionel Model Railroad Club is the Chicagoland Lionel Model Railroad Club, which is located out in, New Lenox.
Greater Metropolitan Downtown New Lenox,
Yep.
Illinois.
Schoolhouse Road.
That's downtown?
Yes.
Outside.
It is for us.
And they're open. They have open houses from 9 to 3 p.m. It's $4 per person admission, 10 for the whole family, and they also have food and beverages you can buy. And so that would be another gauge. Yes.
The Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, the open houses will start in September and they run through May.
Okay.
June, July, and August are our maintenance of way months to, do the new projects and do the painting, and we're actually getting a new HVAC system to provide a better environment during the winter and keep the humidity under control during the summer.
Okay.
And hopefully that project will be starting imminently.
The another club which is fairly close to my house is the Oak Park Society of Model Engineers, and they're located actually in a library. They're in the Dole Public Library branch, and their website is www.opsme.org. And they have actually a club calendar you could go to, and it'll list every month what they're doing on what days.
Do you know what gauge they are?
HO.
Oh, okay.
They're HO. I've been there a few times. And then the final one that I have, which is an N-scale club, is the Northwest N Pioneers, and they're located in, I believe, Broadview. Let's see. And what I printed out doesn't have the address, but if you want to go to it, it's the website is www.midwestn all one word or .org. And they have an index and also a run schedule, and their club is Wednesday and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m. that they're open, and then monthly they have a meeting on Friday, second Friday of every month. So that's what I got.
Okay.
All right. Well, and I know a couple more garden railroads that they can go to.
Okay.
One's in a town called Union,
Oh, yeah.
and they call it the Illinois Railway Museum. That's a heck of a garden layout out there. They got really big gauge trains.
1-to-1.
Yeah, 1-to-1 scale.
Couple of movie stars.
Yep.
Yep, couple of movie stars, and they're running. They run every weekend, going up through September. And from now, and also they sometimes have special events. The next couple of weeks are going to be busy with Thomas the Tank Engine. Will be making its annual visit.
And Percy.
They're a month early. Yes,
and Percy.
Oh, and Percy.
According
is
to the
coming.
commercial we saw today.
Yeah.
And Percy.
Oh, yeah, it'll be the first time for Percy, I think.
Yep.
And
I'm unfamiliar with Percy.
Oh, he's a nice little green engine.
Oh, okay.
He's just so much fun. He's a light green engine, where Emily's a dark green.
I see you've watched the show. Which is your favorite?
He likes diesel.
Ooh.
No diesel. And then we have the Heston Steam Museum, which is out east of Michigan City. It's on Route 100N, and it is a fine museum. It's open on all weekends up through September. Second weekend in September, last fall, and then it's open till October on Sundays, and then they close down for half a month, and then the first 2 weekends in December, they'll have the Santa Candy Cane Express. At the end of October, they have the Erie Express for the Halloween holiday season.
The
I
Heston,
get it, eerie.
the Heston Museum is the one that has the program where you can actually operate one of their switch engines. It's a bit expensive.
Well, yeah, they do have time on the throttle. Yes, you are supervised, but it's worth it. You hands-on experience. They have steam-powered sawmills, steam-powered crane that they operate. There are furniture makers there that actually bring lumber to them to cut up. And usually they'll do it on the weekends when people are there and everything. They've got a nice ice cream parlor, a good place to picnic, and they always have things going on. Like the reenactment weekends with Civil War. They do have rail there. They have a 2.5 mile, 3-foot narrow gauge run. You got a nice 3-truck shay. Last narrow gauge shay built in 1929. It is the only shay that burns all 3 fuels. It started out as an oil burner, and then when it went to New Mexico, it became a coal burner. And then it went to a forestry there was a forest in Arizona somewhere. I think Paul Bunyan made it a desert. And they changed it to a wood burner.
For a minute, I thought you were going to tell me it burned buffalo chips.
That's it. And then, but we have a few German 2-foot gauge. This year they just finished rebuilding a mogul that came from Guatemala. It got destroyed in a fire that they had there in 1986. And the mogul that they rebuilt and its sister, they're actually one number apart on their builder's plates. And they're going to start working on that next year.
Huh.
Inside the 2.5 mile loop is 7.5 inch gauge, or 1.5 inch scale, right on trains. And then they have another loop of 14 inch gauge. If you want to know where the locomotives from Kitty Lamb went, there is a Sunday in September where they have Chicago Weekend. In 2001, they also opened a warehouse, and they found a 2-foot gauge train in there. Several. And these were the trains that ran at the Brookfield Zoo. So those coaches you're riding at the Heston are from the Brookfield Zoo. They have stationary steam engines. They got generators for lights. They just received another generator a couple years ago from the University of Notre Dame. They really said they didn't have a use for it. It's a bipolar generator. And they got it from the lab of Thomas Edison. And that's where he did a lot of his experimentation with bipolar. And we have it now at the Heston Steam Museum. And last year they finished up, they rebuilt a popcorn maker that is steam powered. And It's great.
Steampunk's dream place.
You know what? I tried to get one of the steampunk organizations here interested in it. They didn't think it would be good enough.
What, they don't like popcorn?
I guess so. I really guess.
They prefer Jiffy Pop.
Yeah. See, and then I think they have. They just got something for doing chestnuts. So that'll look good at Christmas.
Yep.
But they actually have some steam traction engines, and they lead the parades over Labor Day weekend. Everything goes. And that's the only time they charge for parking. It was Labor Day weekend because of the crowds.
I got a couple of emails over the last week or so from the 20th Century Railroad Club. They have a trip designated 19E Edward. It's a double-header railway museum tour for the Illinois Railway Museum, and the other one I believe is the Fox Valley Fox Valley Trolley Museum. That's a $65 per ticket for adults, $30 for kids. And they have a Z6 Fall Rail Tour, private dome car from Chicago to St. Paul, Minnesota, and back to Chicago. It's called the Trip Z4 Mississippi River Bluffs. And if you're interested in either of those, go to the 20th Century Railroad Club website. And if you're a big-time fan of the Nickel Plate 765, it will be out at the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad in September 21 and 22, and then September 27, 28, and 29. Tickets for that go on sale July 2nd at 10 a.m. So they're already up and selling. And the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railway is already soliciting for volunteers for their Polar Express trains. It's the first time that I have noticed them doing that. So personally, I'm going to Owasso, Michigan to ride behind the 1225, the Père Marquette 1225, which is the real world version of the Polar Express. But the Polar Express is where your mind and your heart finds it. And what I brought in for show and tell this month is the Polar Express station. It's just a whistle stop, but it's a little bit old school and a little bit modern. It's constructed very much like every other platform station that Lionel has brought out, except it has the old style metal wire nuts that look a bit like ventilator caps, the rounded ventilator caps. The base is a forest green, a duller green. The ironwork is painted a yellow gold, and the roof is Tuscan. And there are 4 photo panels or advertising panels on it that start with the engine from the Polar Express, the logo from the Polar Express, the wording, the Polar Express, and finish with the observation car. It's illuminated. It's set up in the old style where the wires clip in underneath the platform. But that wouldn't be hard to convert to plug and play. Nothing to that but a wire cutter and a skinning knife. Or if you just don't want to do anything fancy, you can grab an old square 9-volt battery like goes in a big flashlight, and a couple of alligator clips, and hide the battery in a small building nearby, and tape the wires down and run them right up underneath. And there's nice little alligator clips underneath to hook the wires to. It was in the Volume 2 catalog for 2018. It is in the hobby stores now, but I would imagine as we get closer to Christmas, it's going to disappear, because as they come out with more and more Polar Express related items like the tunnel and the Hero Boys house, there are going to be people that want it because they're just going to put the Polar Express under the Christmas tree. And that's all I have for the moment.
Well, this item is from the Washington Times. Longer freight trains create delays and safety concerns. Report: federal government lacks ability to monitor derailment trends. U.S. freight trains have been growing up to 3 miles long, creating lengthy delays at railroad crossings for emergency responders and raising concerns about potential derailments, according to federal auditors. What's more, the federal government still lacks the ability to monitor this trend, according to the Government Accountability Office. In recent years, railroad workers and local communities have expressed safety concerns related to longer freight trains, and recent accidents involving such trains are currently under investigation, the GAO said in a report this month. After 2 major derailments that led to toxic spills in 2017, the FRA, Federal Railroad Administration, and the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, both studied the braking capabilities of longer trains and which parts of the country experience frequently blocked railroad crossings. The FRA, which sets federal freight train regulations, currently has no documented strategy for sharing the results of its research with stakeholders to ensure the safe operation of longer freight trains for Class 1 freight firms, the GAO said in its report. Class 1 companies have annual operating revenues of $450 million or more. 7 are in operation: the BNSF, Canadian National, Canadian Pacific, CSX, Kansas City Southern, Norfolk Southern, and Union Pacific. Together they move more than 1.5 billion tons of goods across the country in 2017 and account for more than 90% of annual freight railroad revenues and 90% of railroad employees. There are no federal regulations on maximum train length, so firms carry as many cars as they want. A Union Pacific spokesman has said that longer trains maximize crews, locomotive fuel, and other resources, while CSX has noted that longer trains are a tried and proven way to block crossings. To increase efficiency. While the average length of trains operated by private railroads has gradually grown over time, the increase has been modest, very significantly based on the territory in which the railroad operates, and in no way correlates with decreased safety performance, the American Association of Railroads told the Washington Times. Well, they would, because they're the industry spokespeople. CSX declined to comment on the GAO report, but Union Pacific said it is streamlining operations to move rail cars through communities more safely and efficiently. And if you believe that, I have a railroad I'd like to sell you. Adding rail cars to already scheduled train results in fewer trains traveling through communities, reducing the number of times people stop for passing trains, Union Pacific spokeswoman Raquel Espinoza said in an email. We will continue working with federal agencies and communities to find solutions that ease traffic congestion, as one train takes several hundred trucks off congested highways. According to the GAO, train lengths in 2017 averaged 1.2 to 1.4 miles long, with one firm saying it operated a 3-mile-long train twice weekly. Longer trains block railroad crossings for longer times, creating obstacles to police and other emergency responders. They also prompt unsafe pedestrian behavior, including people climbing through stopped trains. As many as 22 freight trains pass through the town of Mount Victory, Ohio, the GAO noted. Each day, a nearly 3-mile-long train blocks 4 or 5 crossings simultaneously as it passes through, isolating a large section of the community. The impact of such long trains on more than 211,000 railway crossings in the country is a concern to the National League, the GAO noted. The GAO report and the FRA study came after Congress in 2017 derailment of a 178-car CSX train in Hinman, Pennsylvania. More than 1,000 residents within a mile radius of the accident were forced to evacuate their homes after rail cars containing propane and sulfur caught fire. The same year, a CSX train with 192 cars, nearly 2 miles long, spilled hazardous molten sulfur after derailing in Lakeland, Florida.
If you go out on YouTube and put in LaGrange, Kentucky, they have a live feed. There's a camera that shows you the downtown, which has a CSX track right down the middle of Main Street. And if you go out to the city of LaGrange site, they play it up. Come sit in our restaurants, watch the trains go by. Been watching a few of it because you could call it up on Comcast. And yeah, those trains are about 200-300 cars long. I mean, I don't know how those people, think that's a good idea to champion the train right down the middle of the Main Street.
Well, it's a captive audience. They can't go anywhere.
Well, that's true.
It's
There's been accidents and stuff. I mean, the train is restricted to 10 miles an hour until the locomotives clear the city limits. Then they can crank the speed back up. So it's fun to watch, and also you hear the banging of the couplers. They're increasing the speed.
It's cheaper than going to the movie theater.
Well, from an operating standpoint, it is difficult for the engineer to control that long a train. I mean, they have what they call mid-train power, which is operated remotely from the lead.
DPU.
Yeah, DPU? Yeah, distributed power. And but the dynamics are still there, and it depends on how well the trains are assembled, where the loads and the empties are placed. So the rail unions are especially vocal about this because they're basically letting people go to run longer trains, and the railroads say, okay, well, this is precision railroading. This is far more efficient than anything else, and well, that's out for judgment right now. And another victim of that was the Proviso hump was shut down over the weekend, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Friday. Last Friday.
So this is good. There are only 2 hump yards left in the area, I think, Clearing and the EJ&E yard out east in
Kirk?
Kirk, yeah. Those are the last 2 hump yards.
Isn't the IHB one still running?
Yeah, IHB too. You're right.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Down in Riverdale.
Right. But from my standpoint, I haven't really experienced any super long trains. I live like sort of in the nexus of railroads out where I am, and I haven't really noticed any increase in train lengths. Although it's not unusual for the CSX, which now owns both the old B&O CT and the former Grand Trunk line that runs down into the bowl there in Blue Island. They stop their trains quite a bit and block crossings just because the Blue Island interlocking is a mess. It's one train at a time.
Evergreen
Park
and Chicago are fighting over some grade crossing with CSX right now for blocking it all the time.
Yeah. Well, they had gone, and the CSX had made an agreement with both municipalities to not block the crossing for so much time, and they immediately reneged on it. And of course, they threw up their hands and say, "Well, we can't do anything about it."
Well, what they got caught doing was they didn't stop. The train was moving very slowly.
Well, the thing too is,
and they said the train was moving. Yeah, it's moving at 0.1 miles per hour.
The state law that prohibited the railroads from blocking crossings for more than 10 minutes was struck down. So the municipalities have no recourse. They can't go after the railroad and say, "Well, you blocked our crossing in contravention of the law." Well, no, the law doesn't apply anymore. So it's going to be a big problem, and the more cars, they're not going to give up on 2-mile long trains or 4-mile long trains. They're going to have a locomotive on one yard. It's going to leave, and when it gets to the other yard, the tail end's going to be leaving the other yard.
If you go on South Kedzie Avenue at 94th Street on the Evergreen Park Village signboard. It's complaint about the trains, CSX, and it's got CSX's 800 number. So, I mean, they're just, and they have reflectorized signs up on the BOCT tracks where they cross 95th Street, advising people to call CSX directly.
Well, those are for grade crossing malfunctions. If the gates are stuck down or if they don't come down, that number is an emergency number that you can contact the railroad. And
I'm not talking about the number on the little blue plate. I'm talking about the number on the 2-foot by 3-foot reflectorized traffic information signs that are sitting there. You know, the Village Evergreen Park would declare war on the railroad in a heartbeat if they thought they had a chance of winning.
And I got one more item here I'm going to get into, and this is Dave's History Corner. I'm currently reading a book called The Edge of Anarchy, The Railroad Barons, the Gilded Age, and the Greatest Labor Uprising in America, which is about the Pullman Strike, but it's more than about the Pullman Strike. I mean, the Pullman Strike is the focal point of the book, but it covers the whole series of economic depressions that took place during this time. Coxey's Army, all these different unemployed people who marched on Washington from across the country, camped out in Washington, and were eventually removed by federal troops. It's a great book, and if you like history and you read it and you will see an uncanny parallel to the way things are going in this country these days. You really will. It's a great book. It's written by a man, Jack Kelly, who also is the author of a book called Heaven's Ditch. And I'll read some of the things on the back of the book. Pay attention, because Jack Kelly's Edge of Anarchy not only captures the flickering kinetoscopic spirit of one of the great labor capital showdowns in American history, it helps focus today's great debates over the power of economic concentration and the rights and futures of American workers. In gripping detail, The Edge of Anarchy reminds us of what a pivotal figure Eugene V. Debs was in the history of American labor, a man who spoke to wealthy business owners without fear. The story of his battles with George Pullman and the other powerful corporate titans is a tale of courage and the steadfast pursuit of principles at great personal risk. And finally, Jack Kelly's remarkable new book, The Edge of Anarchy, explores an era of our industrial and labor history with remarkable parallels to our own moment. Kelly writes history with the storytelling prowess of a novelist or screenwriter, making forgotten subject matter newly accessible and exciting. And I wholeheartedly agree it's a great book. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, and it is a riveting book.
When did it come out?
It just came out recently.
Oh.
They actually had a lecture and a book signing at the Pullman National Monument. And I actually was out of town and walked into a Books A Million bookstore, and it was the only copy there, and I snatched it up immediately, started reading it.
Okay. Actually, sounds quite interesting.
Oh, it is. It's a great book. It's a great book. And it's interesting because the forces that were aligned against labor, basically people think of it as the Pullman Strike, and the Pullman Strike turned out to be a minor part of it. It was really a nationwide labor uprising, basically against the railroads. I mean, the labor and the citizens of this country stopped the railroads from running. And the reason it's called The Edge of Anarchy is because this country came very close to falling into anarchy. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Should I talk about my train? I also stopped in an antique store and found model of the big boy locomotive. So this is going to be my my big boy moment. People are going to go out and see the locomotive. I'm going to sit in my basement with glue and paint and put one together.
Tell us more, like who made it. And
It's made by the Revell Company, and they are a German company, and it was 2003. And it's HO scale plastic model, not operating, just basically for display. And it's a pretty cool thing. I was thrilled to see it. I remember putting a model train together as a kit, and model kits for railroad trains are not easy to find.
yeah, not anymore. Everything's ready to run.
Right. Right. This is among other railroad related.
Makes you wonder if UP used that when they restored the big boy.
Yeah, I think so. It looks like they probably used the instructions here. They're very comprehensive. Anyway.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that. With the new Lionel catalog, I noticed they were showing buildings, put different names on them for those that are pre-assembled and the ones that are in kits. So Lionel is making kits for the O gauge again, houses and such, and also for HO gauge. Making buildings that are going to be kits or pre-made, ready-made.
So are they snap tos?
I don't know if they're snap tos. I just saw the kits.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, but you know, from it, I thought I was looking at the Menards catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
But these are the assembly. Assembly is required for these. You got stores, houses, and they're making O-scale versions of them. And now you can get figures that light up like Smoking Tony. We are going to have protesters all over the place, aren't we?
Those figures are coming out in 2020.
Are those? Do they actually smoke?
Well, I know he's got a good glow.
Okay. Maybe they'd have
And then,
put
binder
a
with
smoke
a
pellet
headlamp.
in there.
Yeah,
It,
trust me.
it depends if they have their medical card or not.
The pictures are definitely expanded. They say they're going to be 1.5 inches tall.
Yeah, that looks a bit bigger than 1.5 inches.
Yes, just slightly. But, you know, just to show how lifelike they look. That's what it is. They know, sort of. They are going back to some of their old ways, providing the structures and such like that. I think they see how everybody else is making money. Well,
Yeah,
why don't
right.
we finally do it 20 years later?
Well, the county hospital building they came out with in last year's catalog looked good, and it's a lot bigger than the Plasticville Hospital.
Well, yeah, but originally that one is also a bank institution before it became a hospital.
Well, they both involve money.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
and they're going big.
That is true.
Well, yes, you can.
Oh, speaking
Train set for you. See, military train.
I see that.
Yeah, they got your hospital car there.
Where's yours?
Oh, they don't need one for me.
That's debatable.
Well, they haven't made the one with the bed for me and the straps.
the bars on the window.
The special jacket. That nice white jacket they give you.
We were talking about the Illinois Rail Museum. I was on the phone today with Marcus Roof, who is the new president of the Illinois Rail Museum, and I hope to get him on our show next month as a call-in guest. But they've got some pretty exciting things going on at the museum there. They're talking about they've made an agreement with the Milwaukee Road Historical Society, and they're going to move their collections to the museum in a new building that's going to be built. And they're also in negotiations with the Chicago and Northwestern Historical Society to relocate to the museum campus on Main Street. So some cool things going on there.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, get all the paperwork there. That would be the appropriate museum to do it at.
Right. I know the Illinois Central Museum is moving to Monticello. They're closing up there, and I forget where they are now, but the building that they're in is leaking on the records, and they're having all kinds of problems. So they're have an agreement with the Monticello Railroad Museum.
Well, yeah. Well, it's on an old Illinois Central line.
Yeah, right.
So, very appropriate.
Right.
There was a announcement made towards the end of last week that after 67 years, Mad Magazine will cease publishing in August.
Yes, saw that on Sunday morning.
Yeah, I saw that too.
The 2018 Volume 2 Lionel catalog offers a spy versus spy boxcar.
Uh-oh.
He's
got it.
He got it.
I ordered it.
I'm thinking seriously about ordering it because once that once the magazine is gone, they're not going to come out with an Alfred E. Newman observation car. It's just something that sort of stuck in the back of my head when I heard it. I guess they're gonna start releasing archived stuff online, but they're not gonna publish anymore.
Okay, it's not in this one. It's got to be in the either the first volume or last year's second volume.
I think it's a $70 boxcar.
Yeah,
Spy versus Spy.
and it's actually painted in half black, half
cool.
white.
Yeah.
And they got the guys coming up each end, one throwing a bomb, the other
Yeah.
throwing a rocket.
Yeah. Something from our misguided youths.
Yeah, in fact, I was actually pulling a book out that I found. It didn't get destroyed. Paperback humor book. Sergio Ordonez, the guy that did all the marginal drawings. And then or a couple other series like The Shadow Knows. What the guy's doing and what the shadow does.
Well, it's just now that Lionel decided to come out with a car, it's a shame to see the magazine go away, but
That'll boost the value of the car.
yeah. I just recently picked up the Disney submarine car and paid more than it was worth, but then again the car is already 20 years old.
No, I got the yellow submarine car that wasn't officially sanctioned by Lionel. The guy offered to do it, and they made like 20 of them, but they couldn't sell them supposedly, and ended up finding one at a show to go with the yellow submarine aquarium cars.
Hey, we didn't talk about steam locomotives too much today.
No, we're going to though.
Well, let me throw something in here about the tug of war between Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and the Duluth Museum for the Historic Locomotive.
27.
2191, H23462 Pacific, Sioux Line locomotive. This has a complicated story. In 1960, it was given to the city of Eau Claire and sat on display at Carson Park, a popular destination in the city. In 1996, a local nonprofit locomotive and tower preservation fund forms and buys the engine from the city for $1. The engine is moved to a roundhouse in Altoona, owned by the Union Pacific Railroad. The locomotive is brought back to life by the nonprofit. In 2004, the Altoona roundhouse is demolished because of roof leakage and no desire by owners Union Pacific to fix it. The 2179 is moved from Eau Claire, 155 miles north to Duluth via rail in a slow and tedious process under an agreement between the city of Eau Claire and Lake Superior Railroad Museum. In 2015, The boiler license for the 2179 expires, and the museum takes action to purchase the locomotive from the city. The Eau Claire City Council takes back possession of the locomotive from the now defunct Locomotive and Tower Preservation Fund and sells the locomotive to the museum for $2 with an option to buy it back within 3 years. And now we're at the current story where they're fighting over who is going to get the locomotive. Eau Claire wants it back, the museum wants to keep it, and they can't seem to come to any agreement. Moving the locomotive would cost the city more than $750,000 because it's compounded by the fact that the engine can't travel on rail without permission from the railroad. And the only other option would be to disassemble it, trucking it, putting it back together, and sheltering it, reasons why the city council said no to moving it in the first place. The city attorney says Eau Claire has set $100,000 as set aside for relocation expenses, which doesn't sound anywhere close to $750,000. So they fight. It's just going on and on and on. The city has a $10 million liability policy to protect itself and its engine.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, we're talking about a possible restoration, but the minimum at least would be a cosmetic restoration. For the last 30 years, old logging locomotive number 7 has been a centerpiece to the Historical Museum of Fort Missoula. There are dozens of unknowns about this locomotive that was manufactured in 1923 at the Willamette Iron and Steel Works in Portland, Oregon. Now, some of the historians might remember Willamette made a logging locomotive that looked very similar to a Shay. Instead of D piston valves and such, they had piston valves put on their saddles. So, basically upgrading everything that Shay had. And Shay took them to court because they were using basically the Shay design, but they even changed the angle of the pistons. And there is a Willamette that has been rebuilt and working in Washington State, at one of the museums there. This one came out of retirement apparently in '54 to co-star in the movie Timberjack. Larry Ingold and museum officials are in early but encouraging stages of figuring out how to save it from the elements if not restored. At very minimum, we want to make sure it's preserved and doesn't continue to deteriorate because it's out in the open. And so they're looking for, they've got an area where they can build a shelter and put it under and protect itself. At very minimum, we want to make sure the funding sources there's plenty of funding sources to identify and condition report to be completed before, in other words, a big boiler inspection and everything. Have that all cleared out. Engel says it's kind of a four-wheel drive steam locomotive with the geared wheels. But they figure they'd be able to do it, and they figured to have it done in approximately 5 years. And have it out and running. They got a place they can run it. That's got about 20 miles of track on one of the old logging roads that have been abandoned up there. Sierra Railroad number 28 is returning. The consolidation that was taken out of service in the early 60s. They spent $700,000, stripped it down, went back, retubed it all, did the boiler inspection, and a lot of firebox work to say, whole new crown sheet, firebox boiler, new front and bottom corners, new crown stays, new coat of paint. Took more than 400 stay bolts, new high pressure steam tubes, and custom made to fit check valves, safety valves, whistle bell that got all repaired 28 was built for freight service, general supplies due to the central Sierra foothills, including rock, cement supplies, and other dam for the dam building projects. Outback and down the valley hauled lumber and other natural materials. 28 was featured in TV shows like Death Valley Days, Overland Trails, Little House on the Prairie, Bound for Glory, and Chattanooga Choo Choo. But it hopes to get it. It's right there with Sierra number 3, being a television icon, movie icon. Future Texas steam, former Southern Pacific Locomotive 786, currently under restoration at the Austin Steam Train Association. Locomotive was built by the Brooks Works, American Locomotive Company's Brooks Works, Dunkirk, New York, in 1916. It's a group of 20 Mark V 282s, 786, placed in service on the Houston, Texas Central subsidiary of SP. Retired from the city of Austin in 1956. Restoration began in 1990 originally, and after a 2-year restoration, the locomotive was operational. Ran until she was sidelined in 99, following the discovery of cracks in her cylinder saddle. This discovery sidelined the repair, which turned into complete rails to stack, rebuild, which continues to this day. They figured in 2 years they might be able to get it finished, because they finally found a foundry to recast the new cylinder saddle. And we got the big one. The big boy is actually coming to town, gentlemen. We didn't think it was going to happen. We figured something will happen in the 11th hour, like it always does. This will be the first time the UP has a steam locomotive here since 2002. But she is starting her tour out of Omaha on the 16th. Okay. Yeah, she's starting out of Omaha, going to Boone with an excursion. One-way excursion for the passengers. They go travel back by bus. They're going to the Kate Shelley Bridge, and they're going to run over that. And then it's going to make a nice left-hand turn, decide to go to St. Paul, Minneapolis, and spend some time up in Minnesota on display, going to Duluth, Superior, and then they'll start to trek down, come down through Altoona and Adams to make it to Butler on the 25th. On the 26th, she will depart Butler at 8 o'clock, and she's carded time to get into West Chicago is 2:30 Central Time. She is pulling a train behind her because she will have a display baggage car. So everybody, when they go see the locomotive, they can go through the baggage car and have the UP experience, as they call it.
Yeah, you can wait in line just like you wait at a crossing.
With the precision railroading. And then, but it'll be on to Chicago at the Union Pacific Larry S. Provo Training Center, 335 Spencer Street.
Oh, the Northwestern College of Knowledge.
That's it.
I went there.
I went there too. Oh, make me click my heels. And on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the locomotive and all associated equipment will be on display from 9:30 a.m. till 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And that way you can experience the Union Pacific rail car. And then it will depart on Tuesday, July 30th from West Chicago, making a run to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It will do a short stop for 45 minutes at Rochelle. It'll stop in Rochelle from 9:45 to 10:30, and Clinton from 12:45 to 1:30. Wheatland, Iowa, 2:45 to 3:30, and then pull into Cedar Rapids at 5:15, and then leave from there and on Wednesday at 9 a.m. And I'm not going that far. Yeah, but we will probably have a contingent, being this is the closest that a lot of people will get to it. So I know a group of people are coming up from Cincinnati, from Columbus, from Cleveland. They're not going to worry about Cuyahoga. And heck, they might even be coming from the Age of Steam Museum. But we have a lot of friends coming from Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And told them if they, I made note to someone that says, go out and find some place to stay. Find an area. And then they called and I gave them the route that's going to be coming down. We'll talk about that. But one of the places you can stay, we have a lot of bed and breakfasts around here in Indiana and such, just over the border. And one of our first ones that we interviewed, Riley's Rail House.
Right.
They're in Chesterton, 123 North 4th Street, Chesterton, Indiana. This place has a few more rooms that they can occupy. They've put into use. And I guess they're going to be putting a couple more in. But it's a good place to party, a good place to train watch.
Yeah, it is.
And you can even go online. They've got a live feed that you can watch. In fact, it was nice because they actually took some of that feed when last time 765 came to town. Went right by the Riley's house. There were a bunch of rail fans out there. They wanted to see that train come through.
Good for Riley's. They're nice. They're a nice place. They're nice people.
They really are. They're great people. You always have a great time. There's good food in that town. But yeah, coming down, if you want to catch the 4014, it leaves at 8, and the route that it comes down is known as the new line, the sub that they had put in. It was double track, now single track in portions. Coming down out of Butler, it will be traveling at 30 miles an hour until it gets to the bottom, and then makes the cross tracks, and then it'll go up behind the. You could pick it up behind the General Mitchell Airport. There's a couple good spots along there that you can catch it, and also a good place to catch it would be just off of Route 50 in Pleasant Prairie. They got a nice open area. There is a good caution I'd put out for you. It is, you're around railroad property, so watch where you stand. Don't get too close to the tracks. The railroad's actually putting out a warning. You want to come up, fine. Stay within 25 feet. Be 25 feet from the tracks, and nobody's going to bother you. This is Operation Lifesaver talking. We don't want to make any mistakes. And another place that you'll be able to catch several spots there. Once the train gets down to Gurney, you'll be up alongside 41. And you can follow 41 down if there's not that much of a crowd of cars. Yeah. If, let's remember the old rail fan days. The old chasers.
I'll be out there.
They are crazy, so, make sure if you're driving a vehicle, listen to what they say, but don't take your eyes off the road, please. But you can go down, in fact, when you get down by Buckley, just go into the parking lot, Full Moon Restaurant. Go in there, the train's going to be slowing down to 30 mile there, because it's got to go over to the EJ&E crossing. Then you can get back on 41, zip on down. And you can catch it at various points when you go down there through Highland Park and such. Once you get down close to Willow Avenue, You're getting close on the Edens, all you do is get off at Willow. Actually, Tower Road exit would be the one to get. Then you get on Willow, and you head over towards Techney or Shermer, depending upon what you call it. And you can be able to catch the tracks that the switches over and crosses over the CP trackage, and that's where the CP connection is also, to crawl on. And they get on there, it's only going to be 30 miles an hour if they hold them there because of commuter traffic before they let them go through DeVal Tower. So they're back up there. You can get some couple nice shots. If you want, you can stand under the, go see the stress test on the Shermer Bridge. See if it holds. And you can go. You get some. You can hit a few of the road crossings there, and get that train coming across. But you can catch that, and that'll give you enough time to get down there. You can go to Northwest Highway or Rand Road. Rand Road, you can catch the crossing right there. That and River Road. You'll be able to catch the crossings. And just head down along Route 83. You'll be able to catch the train going in towards Proviso Yard. You'll have a couple good spots to get there. You don't have to be crazy to get there. You don't have to, be Mad Max. But go out and enjoy yourself. Have a good day because, this is, it's a big thrill for a lot of people. We are seeing the world's largest.
And that was our Volugal Maps report.
Well, I guess we better be coming to an end.
We're dying of the heat here.
But, Ron, you haven't said anything.
I really don't have much to say, except it's very interesting.
Are you going to come back?
I might. You'll let me come back?
I don't have a say in this, so you don't have to worry.
Oh, good.
You're welcome back anytime.
Sure,
Thank
we want
you.
you back.
Thank you.
Be like the
You
rest.
can even bring your front.
Which friend is that?
Front.
Oh, front.
He said they want your back, and I'll say you can bring your front.
Okay.
Be like the rest of us. You made the mistake of showing up once and you keep coming back.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that routine before.
As our friend Jack Red Ryan says, happy rails to you. As our express comes into the station, we want to thank you for joining us on our journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and can be heard on our website at www.windycityhometown.com, where you can listen to tonight's broadcast and all our past episodes, and also some of the other great programs that are being offered. I'm your announcer, Brian Valou. Till next month, when we journey to Chicago Junction.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, July the 10th, the year 2019. Chicago Junction was produced and directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Shikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, July the 10th, the year 2019. Until next time, friends, be safe and thanks for listening.